Hello, everyone. Steve from the Audiophiles special edition today. I have Kirsten Edkins and Kevin Gray here to discuss. I don't know if it's a little bit of glare today here. See if I can.
Yeah.
There you go. How's that?
Hey.
I see Kirsten has hers behind her.
Oh yeah.
When I got this album, Kirsten, I think I played it. I played it at least 10 times to review it, but I've played it a lot since I got it. I'm really enjoying it just because, well, obviously because it sounds great, because I also like the originality of it too.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I don't know, but Party Slug from all the tracks, was there 8 tracks on there, is my favorite.
I love that. That's great. That song was actually the last one I wrote, and I think I wrote it just maybe a couple of weeks before the session.
Oh wow! So
I love that.
Was there any inspiration for Party Slug? Like, how did it come about?
You know, I had the other tunes all lined up, and I just wanted something with a different vibe. And Chris Wabish, our drummer, he's so versatile. He can play any genre. So I was thinking of what could be different, and I was thinking of a cha-cha, and I kind of was just vibing out on my piano, thinking of something that was just cool and relaxed, you know, kind of soulful. And I came up with that. And I think part of it too is like we started rehearsing the music for the album, and I already kind of knew like the vibe we were all bringing into it. So it kind of came out of like, what would we all sound good on? So it was almost like a personalized tune for this session, given the makeup of the band.
That's interesting. So do you normally start like a song using your piano, or you do the sax first? Like what normal?
It totally depends. I like sitting down, even though I don't play a lot of piano. I like sitting down on the piano because it gets me, it helps me access things I wouldn't normally play on the saxophone. And honestly, I mean, I want you guys to get into all the nitty gritty. I don't know if this is the time to talk about. You let me know.
Oh,
go ahead. Okay.
This is all about your album. We want to hear this.
Okay.
I will let you know. There's a lot of people that are fascinated to hear from you as well. So I got a lot of comments there.
Cool.
So they want to hear the processes. I mean, that's what makes it fun. And then we'll get into the more nerdy stuff after.
Right. Well, this is nerdy in its own way. Yeah, so sometimes I'll go about writing a song based off of maybe something I've heard recently, and something where I'm trying to make it my own, you know, but like a groove or a chord or a series of chords. And one very common thing as a jazz musician is that you take chords that belong to a popular song, and then you write your own melody over something, and that's called a contrafact. And sometimes I'll start that way, like, let's see, Bird Shapes was written based off of that. So that's
my favorite track. Just have to add that.
Oh, cool. That's so cool.
That's my second favorite track. So there you go.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, so it's based off of the song Confirmation by Charlie Parker. But I started there, and then kind of, I put it in an awkward key, you know, so instead of the normal key that everyone's practiced for decades, you know, all of us jazz musicians, instead of, what is the key? I think it's an F. I put it up a whole step. So it's, you know, and this is getting into nitty gritty, but like it just put it in a key that you're not super familiar with. So you have to already think of like new material. And I think that song, I sat down on the piano, and it was like an exception that I did come up with some of the lines on my saxophone. But I'd say that normally I don't write lines starting from the saxophone because I want it to sound more melodic. I love tunes like Party Slug. I love tunes that are soulful and have like hopefully some sort of catch. So even if I go sort of left with an idea, like and this is, now I'll mention the song Goose. That one's like very chaotic, and hopefully there's like moments of it sounding a little bit more soulful, but it was meant to sort of go in left field, you know, and be chaotic and a little disjointed and all that. That was the vibe I was going for. But I'm always hoping that there's like some basis of like some blues and soulfulness in my songs. So yeah, I think all in all, that's what I try to achieve in my playing as well. But then I also try to put in my own personality. And there's different ways to achieve that, you know, but
You hit the mark,
always
Kirsten. You hit the mark.
cool.
Kirsten, how was it working with Kevin? Tell us about that.
Oh gosh, just incredible. You know, in some ways I'm kind of lucky that or fortunate that I knew Kevin personally first. And I'm kind of fortunate for that because I couldn't be like as starstruck, you know, because I could have been if I came out of not knowing him into like, well, this guy that's done so much and is just a genius, you know, that could have stunted me a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, gosh, just in terms of his knowledge, and I think we have a mutual love of sound and capturing the distinct sounds of instruments and nuances in music. So like that was mutual, but like Kevin comes from a whole nother angle and standpoint that I don't understand. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, where my videos, a lot of my groups are like more of the audiophile. So it's like, you know, the very high end, heavy duty, you know, expensive turntables and amps and speakers and all that stuff. And
right.
I've been doing it in all valve, you know, basically the complete AAA. That's what a lot of the audiophiles want. So the whole album, I'm going to put it up again if anyone, you know, I don't like this glare, but the whole album, I mean, it did have that Rudy feel, Rudy sort of. I think that maybe had a lot to do with Hackensack West, though, too. Did you feel that vibe, though, Kirsten, in the studio? Just the intimacy of the
oh yes,
studio, that probably works well.
Definitely, yeah, and it was so cool because we almost recorded maybe a year before when we actually did, right, Kevin?
Right,
something like that.
That's when it started.
Yeah, and it was just great how it all sort of evolved, and we held off for a second. You know, like a couple of people have mentioned, it was during COVID, which was awkward, but it all worked out because the room sounds so good, like when you're standing in it, and that's so important as a musician. Sometimes you can feel like you're in a real, like a place that's hard to hear the other instruments and you can't really hear yourself, but everything in that room just was so easy to hear. And that's so hard. And you know, most of the time in the studio, we're in separate rooms, which is really hard in a jazz setting to be in different rooms because it's not organic at all. But the room sounds fantastic and feels so great to play in.
There's the room right there. Bringing back memories for you, Kirsten.
Yep. But yeah, another side note, you know, for all the fans of Kevin, what you all know about Kevin and his work, it's equal, if not more pronounced in his personality, his demeanor and his personhood. He's just a fantastic person.
Wow,
and
thank you.
Yeah, and given all his knowledge, which I can't wait to keep on actually understanding more of the details. I appreciate that when Kevin would tell me something about what he was doing, or he would assume that I was understanding what he was saying, and I really appreciate that. I do, but I also want to understand more in depth. But the cool thing is when we were working together, Kevin also was so understanding of wanting to adjust in any little ways he could, of course, where myself as a musician was pleased with how things were sounding. So it was just great to work with Kevin.
So yeah, you're mostly referring to like mic placement and that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
How close or far or high or low. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the sound of like the band to make sure is like, is this kind of like what, but I was blown away when we would listen back, just to answer your question, Steve, it really sounded like a classic recording, the whole sound of.
And that's how I feel listening to it, and some of the equipment that I use, some of the high-end equipment, especially your sax, because Kevin has it sort of really really into the left channel, Kevin, left
Yes.
channel. You got trombone onto the right, and the bass and the drums, really come from behind, I feel. But it's that real live recording that I'm hearing. It's not just all, all around. And I really appreciated your sax, and that's why I really like Party Slug, just because it was so beautiful on the left channel. And it was just so well mixed too, Kevin. And I mean, I just think the sound of that, and then I just went back to this when I was listening to it, Kirsten. I had this, right? I'm like, okay, it's everyone. How did it look when you guys were recording it? Because I mean, you did it live, I don't know how many takes it was. But I mean,
we only did 2 takes of each song. That was it.
Did you take the first take of the album, or did you
It depended. It depended.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So that
I
was
think most of them, as I recall, most of them were first takes. Is that right, Kirsten?
Probably.
Yeah, we used a second take on maybe 1 or 2 of the 8 tracks.
Do you feel as a musician though, Kirsten, like first take is your best? Like the first always is, because you just have it, right? You just have that, the emotion is there most times, or do you feel you need a second or third?
Gosh, it just depends.
It varies.
Yeah, it varies. It really does. Yeah.
But I mean, you must have obviously with your group practiced and rehearsed a lot prior to jumping into the Hackensack West studio, though.
Yeah, we did. I would say, given the time that we were in, though, here in California, we were more locked down than other areas. Locked down, so to speak. I mean, every city was different, but I was fortunate that the musicians were willing to like rehearse and everything. But it was a unique time that it wasn't like we were out playing, gigs together and all that. But yes, we certainly got together and really got the vibe down.
We did one rehearsal day in the studio a couple of days before, or day before, I can't remember. The day before. And that was really the first time that the whole band had played together. True. Because Gerald, we had to wait, I think it was almost 2 months to get him, right? Because he was out on tour with
at least
with Charles Lloyd.
Right.
So that was the last holdup to actually recording, but boy, it was well worth waiting for.
You didn't mention, here's Gerald here, you can see him.
Yeah.
I didn't mention the piano yet, but I thought that, I mean, he's so light on his fingers. I just felt, I don't know if you guys, I mean, this is what I'm picking up, tell me if I'm wrong, but I felt his fingers were so light, but just, it really created that, what you're looking for in that group. Would that be a fair sort of evaluation? I just thought his playing was great.
Do you have comments, Kevin? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, he didn't try to make himself stand out. I mean,
no, not at all.
He definitely,
whatever he did worked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The thing that's really amazing to me about Gerald's playing, and I find it very unusual, is that, usually you have to ride everybody up and down for their solos. And Gerald, he just plays louder when he plays a solo, and then he backs back off when he's back into the track.
Exactly. Absolutely.
But that wasn't part of the mixing. That's the way he plays.
And you had the microphone just on top of the piano then? Where was it? It was placed?
Yeah, it was in front of the hammers, slightly in front of the hammers.
Right there.
And facing the back, the nose, so to speak, of the piano.
Yeah. And Kirsten, as an audiophile nerd, I love this because the details. So when Kevin puts in all the recording details and what microphones are used and his tape recorder, and then we see the actual tapes. This is what we talk about in all the forums, like exactly.
Beautiful.
Kevin knows this. He's been doing this
for
longer than I've been alive, Kevin, by the way. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's another kind of a vintage thing. Everybody always listed all the microphones used, right? That was a big thing, And it was funny because when we were doing the jacket, Chris Moosdale, my graphics guy, said, rather than cluttering up the jacket with all that info and some extra pictures of the gear that the gearheads want to see, why don't we do a separate insert for that? Perfect. And initially it was just going to be black and white, and I went, what the hell, let's go full color on it. So we did, and I'm glad we did. And that's going to be just that's an extra bonus for the first record that we put out. I don't think I'll be doing that every time. It wasn't cheap.
Oh, no, exactly. No, I like it. And I love this too. It says the decade from 54 to 64 is often called the golden age. And so in my review, Kirsten, I was like, no, this is the new golden age, because I think Kevin captured that sound, because they went, back in that decade, it was the all valve sound. So I mean, Kevin got back to the roots, and you basically being the first jazz musician to really experience that. I think this is going to be one of these classic records that people can talk about in 30, 40 years from now, like they do with Kind of Blue. And I did mention that in my review because of the recording. I mean, that's the thing too, it's recorded. I think in a perfect setting, perfect atmosphere. And I really enjoyed your group though, Kirsten. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously you haven't really played with Gerald before, it sounds like, but I mean, Chris Wabeck, who he recorded he wrote Hula Hoop, right?
He did. Yeah.
Little number too. I mean, it's yeah,
right.
I like that one as well. So I mean, you guys, I think you worked with Chris before then, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, yes. I've played with Chris in some of his groups, and then we play in John DeVersa, a great trumpet player and composer. We played in his band sometimes together too.
Oh,
he's one of my favorites. Yeah,
I'm going to tell you a quick insider thing here. I occasionally have lunch with some of the Wrecking Crew guys at a special thing that happens monthly. And one of the guys is Don Randy, who was one of the Wrecking Crew guys back in the 60s, played on a lot of pop records. And, you know, anyway, he owns the Baked Potato and I guess it would be Studio City, which is a famous jazz club. And we're talking, and out of the clear blue sky, he says to me, "Hey, there's a hot new drummer in town." I mean, he's like, you know, probably pushing 80. And it was Chris, you know, and I said, "Hey, that's so funny because we just used him on we had just recorded the record like a month before." And so he goes, "Oh, that's great. I can't wait to hear it."
That's fun.
And going back, and any more inspirational musicians that you sort of base your creativity around? I mean, is it like the Miles Davises, the Coltrane's, you got the Monks? I mean, I'm sure you grew up listening to all that.
Oh yeah,
also,
definitely.
The second question I have is like, how did you get into all of it?
Right.
Two-parter.
Okay. Let me see. How can I sort this all out in my brain? So I will say that I did not really grow up around a lot of music. My mom played some piano, so I was around that, like her, you know, her sitting down and just playing Christmas songs, stuff like that. And then I started playing piano for just a year when I was maybe in third grade, and I loved it. But then my teacher moved away, and I was so attached to her personally that I thought, there's no one else for me. My piano playing or studying is over. So I just kind of fiddled around on my own. It's not like I got good or anything, but I loved just the connection of like touch and getting sound, right? Just being in control of sound. So then my older brother played trumpet in elementary school and junior high, and I happened to hear the junior high that he was in. And I'm assuming that listeners kind of know it's rare for there to be a female saxophone player, unless it's like a smooth jazz player. And there are certainly younger females coming around, being out on the scene. And there are some older ones that are incredible too, but it's just not very common for there to be a straight ahead jazz player. So anyways, I saw this concert and there were 4 female saxophone players in the jazz band. And that's really rare to have out of school, more common in like public school and like lower education, you know. Anyway, so at the time I was kind of like a tomboy, and I was like, oh, this looks cool. I can be cool, but it's like girls are doing it. So anyways, I knew I wanted to play saxophone. And I got one and immediately fell in love with it. I had already, played piano and knew how to read music. And so I started playing just a lot of songs right away. And it just felt so good. And growing up in Southern California, I was lucky to always have really great teachers. One of them was this guy, Jason Freese. Josh is his brother. And Jason, he's done a lot of stuff, but he plays in Green Day now, the rock band. And so Jason totally inspired me. And I got into, at that time, listening to smooth jazz, because that's kind of what he was into. And then in high school, I started hearing the classic jazz recordings. And I think one of the first ones was Cannonball and Coltrane. Yeah. And with the Wynton Kelly, trio. And I remember hearing that and just thinking, this music is so weird. It's so complex. And I want to figure out what they're doing. So at the time I was playing alto, and I didn't start playing, on the recording, I play mostly tenor. I don't play alto at all. So yeah, the time I was playing alto, so Cannonball became one of my heroes, and Kenny Garrett, like a guy who's still alive, you know, and around, and has a really distinct personality. And I also started listening to tenor players, and I always gravitated to people that had a lot of personality, you know, someone that like you could hear, and it wasn't just like that classic saxophone sound, it's like sort of generic, but I always loved people with personality. So you know, as I kind of progressed and also started playing tenor, I was drawn to like Joe Henderson, and then like Eddie Harris, of course Coltrane, you know, of course Coltrane, but like I really like the rawness and personality of certain players, where it's like it's almost, you know, like some note that they play can almost be heard as a mistake, but it's so like human, you know, it's not perfect. And of course, as a musician and one that tries to be good, I do, you know, we all kind of strive for whatever perfection is, but when it really comes down to it, I do love that rawness that you can get on an instrument. And I think the saxophone, of course, has so much personality. So yeah, and I remember that transition between like from listening to CDs and classic albums to going out. You know, I lived in Orange County growing up, so I was maybe an hour away from LA, and I started studying with somebody, this guy Bob Shepard, great saxophone player, and I was in high school, and I became friends with the guys that, you know, they were all like sort of mentors and heroes of mine, but guys that played in, I'm totally blanking on his name, even though I've never blanked on his name before. Drummer that played in Bill Evans' group. Oh, Joe LaBarbera.
Oh yeah.
So I used to hear Joe LaBarbera's band like all the time. I was like their groupie. I don't know if they remember that, but maybe like once a month. And there was such, like you asked about my my, you know, influences and stuff, but there was such a difference between hearing somebody on a recording and then standing like right in front of them and hearing all the nuances that you can't really hear on most recordings. And I was already actually at that time, that was high school, I was already playing professionally in some bands, you know, with like older people and everything. But this was like a different experience to hear these like modern day, you know, icons and hear all just the cool inflection, personality, all that stuff. So that's what like really inspired me to like dig. I mean, I was already digging deep into music, but like really develop my own voice and know that like you could have a powerful voice through inflection, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
You did well there. Those are the two questions you answered them. Excellent.
All right, great.
The one thing about, I think, the you know, the golden age jazz, I always feel like it's very quick and fast paced. I mean, and I think you really captured that in this album as well. I think we really got you, because, you know, you listen to, I like Steely Dan. I mean, that's sort of that fusion jazz, but Steely Dan's fusion jazz is a lot slower paced. And I know Kevin and I have spoken about that before with, you know, your new golden age jazz. I really like the pace and what you tried to achieve. It really did remind me with, you know, with the sound of the, you know, the original golden age of jazz. You really captured all of that. That's truly how I feel. And Kevin, I know Kevin obviously guided you towards that, because I mean that's what his goal was. Well, you know, his goal was to do that. I mean, you're recording in Hackensack West. I mean, Rudy's, you know, it's sort of like a Rudy recording studio. I mean, I think you guys did such a fabulous job of this album. And I will say again, that it's getting it's being talked about a lot on the different forums right now, Kirsten. So I know everyone, cool. I got a lot of people asking me, you got to get Kirsten on, you got to get Kirsten. channel. So I'm like, okay. So then I had texted Kevin, and obviously he texted you, and here we are. So I think everyone's going to be very excited, because normally we have Kevin on a lot, and a lot of the guys behind the scenes, but to have the actual artist that's we're listening to, I think this is really cool. This is the first time I've ever gotten to interview a musician, so I appreciate your time.
Oh, that's great.
Really excited about this. When Kevin told me it was going to happen, I was like, yes. So no, so do you have another album in mind already? Did you start writing in the next one?
Well,
no pressure.
Yeah, I will definitely start. I mean, it's always good to be writing songs. I think writing songs really helps you to hone in on, your voice and what makes you unique, because it like lets you pause and not worry about like, oh, I gotta play and I gotta get through this song and think of cool ideas. It like lets you sort of slow down and be thoughtful and think of like hopefully like the material. And this was also for my first album too. Like my goal is that every tune kind of has a little bit something, hopefully a little bit something different, but yet you can tell overall maybe that it's all the same composer. But then again, I don't know, because they're so different in their own ways. But yeah, honing in and like writing is a really good tool for just developing your own thing. So yeah, I definitely need to sit down and start doing that again, for sure.
I've got an idea. I mean, we know Chet Baker had the Chet Sings album. Maybe we can do a Kirsten Sings album.
There we go. My husband would love that. He's always trying to get me to start singing.
Well, he's a singer. He's a vocalist.
He's a singer, yeah.
There you go. So an idea that would be kind of cool.
He also plays baritone sax.
He does, yeah.
Kirsten Sings. That's the next album, Kevin.
Oh my gosh! And then Kirsten dances, which you don't want to see.
Well, that's okay. We won't be able to see that on a record.
Exactly. Okay, then I'll nail it.
So Kirsten dances, but we won't see it. It's funny.
Uh-huh.
So when will you get back to, I guess, creating some new material? Is it going to be a while, or is it sort of an everyday thing? You just sort of, an idea comes and you start going back to the piano. Like, how does it work for you? What's your process there?
I have to kind of like prep myself because it takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Some people can sit down and I have composer friends that just are constantly writing. But for somebody that it's part of what I do, but it's not like the only thing. It does take a while, and I don't. Mine is like Party Slog. I wrote that tune pretty fast, but yeah, usually like I really transform like a song, or sometimes I'll even have a song for like a couple years, and then all of a sudden have an idea like how I want to make it different. So it just the process is kind of slower for me in general. But I have been thinking about part of it too is just like listening to music and being inspired by other things. Like sometimes I'll pull something out of just my own head, but it really is it's, for me, it's easier if I'm inspired by something else, and I'm not like stealing anything, but yeah, it helps to like have either like like one person I love actually for his songs is John Scofield.
Oh yeah.
Guitar player.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool to be inspired by a different instrument as well. I think as a saxophone player, a lot of saxophone players, you can hear a certain player. I mean, of course you can hear different players in my own playing, but it's easy to fall into certain traps as a saxophone player, sounding too much like John Coltrane or whoever it might be, right? So what was I going to say about? Oh yeah, John Scofield. So I love the variety of his tunes, and I just love how one of my goals, like, and I'm so happy that it's happened through this project. But one of my goals has been in the back of my mind, but I really didn't know how it would be possible to have like appeal to people that might not normally listen to jazz. And so when I'm writing a song, like I'm always thinking about like it can't lose people. I don't want to completely lose people, because I think sometimes jazz can do that. And the saxophone in some ways is so easy to play. It's like really quick little nutshell here, like a scale going up, like a piano, it's all the white keys going up, it's the key of C. The saxophone key of C is like this. So it's just lifting a finger at a time. So there's aspects of the saxophone that are so easy. It's very easy to play a bunch of notes.
Trumpet.
Yeah, exactly. Once you when you really dive deep into the saxophone, there, of course, it's hard, but
sure.
Yeah, but one of the things, because I jazz is so cool, but it can lose some people, and I'm sure not everyone's gonna love this music, because it might lose some people, like the Goose, there's like some, it's kind of pushing people, right?
Oh, I love
the Goose is funkier, right?
Yeah,
it sounds like you had fun on that one.
Yeah. That song,
it's the opener on side 2, right?
I think it's the last end.
It's the last song on side 1.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah. So that one is like a little bit more. That one's a little bit more dissonant, But my goal, like I said, John Scofield he's like one of my heroes, because his tunes are so soulful and like funky, and he's still playing really cool stuff, but it's kind of like hidden within these real melodic and like cool groove, these songs with cool grooves and stuff. So anyways, one of my goals has been to reach a wider audience, and not through being a smooth jazz saxophone player, because that was always, one of the things, as a female saxophone player, you're sort of sometimes trying to be talked into that route, or be, not that I have nothing against playing in pop situations. I really love pop situations when especially I can still somewhat play like myself, but I'm so happy that this music is like getting out to people that wouldn't normally hear jazz. That makes me so happy.
Yeah, you're going to get some new fans from this as well. I know that from, like I said, I'm a part of a lot of the different forums on Facebook, and there's a lot of talk going on. I know they're excited for this interview. I'm going to be posting this later today. So, it's exciting. And then Kevin, I know you had some news about some distribution ship of the album. You were telling us at the top before we started. Do you want to just talk about that a little bit? Because I know one of the comments I'm getting from my viewers is that ask Kevin when we can get it in Europe.
I know, no, I've seen them all. I wasn't ignoring you. I was just sort of waiting for certain things to happen. Jan Sieveken Audio in Germany is going to be distributing for the EU, and then I'm also talking. I don't want to mention this yet because it's not a done deal, but I'm talking to a guy in the UK who will do UK distribution. Hopefully, we'll have that worked out, I think, by Monday. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So of course the bad news is it's sold out right now. But
let's talk about that, because a lot of people, I get people to email me and text me like, how can I get this? How can I get this? You can pre-order at Acoustic Sounds right now on their website, correct?
Well, I just got texted by the guy who did the RVG website back in New York. And he said, I just picked one up. I think he said from Acoustic Sounds. Now, see, the thing is, I'm for a while up through last Friday, I was shipping sporadically. So they probably have just gotten more back in.
Yeah. Because on the website,
he did not say where he got it, but I didn't send it to him. So it was from one of the guys, one of the 4.
Pre-order on the Acoustic Sounds website. The first 1,250 have been sold already. The second batch of 1,250 is on its way now, from my understanding, Kevin.
That's correct.
So pre-order now. In Groove, I think, is another big record store in Phoenix. He does a lot. So he does a good business as well. So I think he can pre-order there too.
Right. Yeah. It's basically the big 3: Acoustic Sounds, Elusive Disc, Music Direct.
There you go.
In Grooves is my 4th distributor.
In Groove. So 4 altogether. So those are the 4. I would go to their website.
Far, plus Europe, hopefully.
And pre-order. If it says pre-order, Kevin can promise you'll if you get it in, there's going to be more batches or more pressings as we move forward, depending on the sales. Which
correct.
You're pretty happy with it so far, aren't you? Been going really.
Oh my gosh!
It's been. I'm telling you, it's been buzzing. This album's been buzzing. Where is it here? It's buzzing. Kirsten, you're the talk.
Wow.
Well, don't get me wrong. I knew the record was going to sell. I wasn't expecting 1,250 copies to sell out in 1 week.
Incredible.
I mean, that was shocking. It just was. I thought maybe a month.
But you guys deserve it. You've put your heart and soul, your careers. This is your life. You deserve to get something back from it. And so
thanks, Steve.
Great sounding record, original material, Kirsten. You deserve this because it is a very good album. I wouldn't say that if I didn't truly believe it as well. And I wouldn't do a review the way I did because I really wanted to take some time when I got this record. I didn't just initially say, oh, well, I listened to it a lot. And I really wanted to break it down. And when I listen to albums and I review them, I take notes as well. So I have a bunch of listening notes, Kirsten. So I really like to listen to where the different instruments are placed and whatnot. But Party Slug to me was always, I go back to that one because that's one. And it's funny that was the one that you did so quickly. And to me, it's my favorite track.
I love it. Yeah.
I love that. I love that track.
That's why we opened the album with it. It's also, it was the very first song we recorded for the session.
So Kevin, we got to get a little bit nerdy. So you got to tell the viewers we want to talk about the whole recording process, the basic as you're on the album. I hate this glare, but all valve from microphone to the cutter head. Can you talk about that?
Well, yeah, probably the best thing would be to watch the video, which I think you have embedded, right? You did it.
I will. You know what I'll do? I have the link. I'll put the link in the description of this this video.
Yeah, I did a 17-minute video describing it. But basically, yeah, it was a wacky idea I had back in 2005. Wouldn't it be fun to be able to record new artists, modern artists, today artists with vintage sound? And so I spent, basically 15 years building all of the gear to do that. And it was completed early in 2020, and then COVID hit. So that kind of slowed things up a little bit. And but yeah, that's.
Oh, I love the fact. I mean, this is the thing. We talk about the golden age. Kevin's equipment. We're throwing it back to the 1950s. So Kirsten, you're basically the very first artist that gets that 1950s golden age treatment in the year 2023. With incredible engineer, incredible mastering engineer, and Kevin and your whole team, did very well with this recording. And I'm excited for your follow-up with Kevin. I'm hoping that will happen. I guess it's going to depend on a lot of things, and no pressure for the Kirsten Sings album or anything like that. But but yeah. So the process there, Kevin. And going forward now, I think it's great to have up and coming artists you're inviting into your Hackensack studio here. And I think this is going to be an incredible opportunity for our, musicians going forward, young and more, even ones that have been around for a while. So this is incredible to see. You don't see this very often, especially in the jazz genre as well, maybe more in the rock, but to get this, and there's a big following of jazz, especially newer jazz artists. So I think this is just the beginning, and I'm really excited for your future, Kirsten, and what you guys will be, you and your band will be doing. And Kevin brought all of you out of that, all of your band out of that. All I could hear everything from, and I just really like the way it sounds. And I didn't mention, is it Lamar, the trombonist?
Yeah.
I used to play trombone in high school, so I'm like, this dude can actually, I wasn't very good, but I was like, this dude can play.
He's incredible.
He's the coolest guy too.
I was like, wow,
he really is.
It sounded so, and again, tell me if I'm wrong. It sounded so laid back, so relaxed. And he was it just sounded like no stress. He just does it.
Well, you guys have played together before in big band stuff, right? Kirsten?
Right. Yeah. I think let's see, maybe Bill Holman and John Beasley, Monkestra.
Wow. No, I'm really impressed. Are you going to do some gigs now? Some stuff?
Yeah, we will be doing
a lot of gigging.
So tell our viewers, do you have a website? Where can they see?
I do. KirstenEdkinsMusic.com.
And will you put your schedule of events on there at some point?
I will. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I'll include the link to your website on the description of this.
Okay, great.
This as well.
Perfect.
So go to it. Sorry.
The last time that Kirsten and I actually saw each other was at one of her gigs when she was playing at Vibrato. That's Herb Alpert's club, and with the BBB, the Bernie Dressel Big Band, and she played some nice solos at that. So that was fun.
So
that was in the fall? Was that late summer, early fall?
Maybe like October.
Okay, fall. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Kevin, I have a few people. I mean,
Okay.
They want to know if it's ever going to go on CD.
Probably not. Probably not.
I already answered.
I've actually produced CDs, but for one reason only, to get it to radio stations, because they do. That's about what all they play at radio stations.
Mm-hmm.
So how does it work with Spotify? How do we get this on Spotify for people as well? Does that happen? Or do you,
well, yeah,
I don't know.
I'd rather sell the high res, or not sell, but make the high res version go out there to people who want to stream and download. Because I don't want to degrade the audio in it. You know, it puts all this work into getting this great sound, and the last thing I want to do is put out MP3s of it. It's just, you know.
I agree. I think personally, I think it should just stay on vinyl.
Well, no, it will be in digital form, but it'll be down the road a bit. Bit. You know, I don't want to make any statements. You know, it's funny when we did the recording, and Michael Fremer did the really nice article about Hackensack West a year ago. I said, yeah, the record will be out midsummer. You know, it's like, right. best laid plans, as they say. But yeah, it was the jacket that really held things up. It was crazy, but you know, you do what you got to do. It's out. I'm happy. It's what else can I say?
Well, that's excellent, guys. I think we'll leave it at that. There's I want to thank everyone here. This has been a wonderful little chat, and I'm really excited about where things will go for you, Kirsten and Kevin. Thank you for introducing us to such an incredible talent and incredible sounding jazz album. I mean, I can't say enough. It's blew me away. So thank you, guys.
Can I say and thank two people?
Yeah.
Not getting mentioned much. Dave Connor was the guy who actually put Kirsten and I together to do this. And originally it was just going to be a sound test in October of 2021. And the sound test went so incredible. Kirsten wrote 3 of the 4 songs that we recorded for the sound test. And so it was all through that we wound up doing a Kirsten Edkins album.
Wow. It's amazing.
And that's the first thing. Second thing is, people have asked, what's with the co-engineer thing? Well, Ryan Worthland is an amazing engineer in his own right. And he was the front of house sound for Cafe Cordial, which was a great jazz club that's now gone, unfortunately. And as a matter of fact, Kirsten, I think the very last gig that was done there was
I was
Bernie
there.
Dressel,
yes.
and you played in that, right?
Yes.
Isn't that a weird coincidence?
It's so crazy. I didn't realize that he was the sound guy there.
Yeah, he was
had
the
no
front house
idea.
guy. And so I knew that it would be a piece of cake for him to mix this. I've done a lot of 2 mic and 4 mic recording where it's like 2 mics on the orchestra, 2 mics on the choir, that kind of stuff. I've been doing that for 50 years. I've recorded the LA Jewish Symphony many, many, many times live. But mixing 4 instruments where you're having to fade in and fade out solos and that kind of thing, I'd never done that before. I've had a little bit more experience now, so I feel confident. But at the time, I thought, man, I got to get somebody in who really knows what he's doing. So that was Ryan's part. He gets an awful lot of credit for the sound on this record.
Thank you, Ryan. Well done as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you. I'm really grateful that you guys took the time. Wish you all the success, Kirsten, and I'm sure we can do this again, hopefully. And Kevin, you and I will be talking again. We'll be on again soon. But thank you so much for everything, guys. This has been awesome.
Most welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Hey, bye-bye.
All right. Bye.